Hey everybody, just making my way in from work, and I've been thinking about a comment I got on one of my YouTube videos last night. It just makes me wonder what people really expect to get out of a YouTube video. I've recently gotten some comments where I was talking about some complicated issues or complicated topics like surface agitation, gas exchange, and whatnot. And people were, I got a lot of comments from people about how, that's not a full understanding. You have to go to college for several years before you get a full understanding of that. And it just makes me wonder, did you think when you started watching this 10-minute YouTube video that you were going to come out the other side of it with the equivalent of 2 years worth of college education? Because if you did, then you had really unrealistic expectations of that 10-minute YouTube video you were about to watch, especially since I start the video by saying that I'm not a professional at this. This is just what I think about it. It's food for thought. It's a topic of conversation. I'd love to hear your thoughts on it, and then people somehow are disappointed that I'm not a college professor and didn't cram 2 years worth of college courses into a 10-minute YouTube video. So I don't know. Like I said, I don't know what people think when they watch YouTube videos, or what they expect to get out of them or whatever. I will occasionally get videos where people seem to act as though I'm required to post fish keeping videos and fish keeping videos only because they've decided that I have a fish keeping channel, and apparently the YouTube rules state that if you've got a fish keeping channel, then you can't post any other video besides a fish keeping video. But the one I got last night really just had me scratching my head for a while. The person started out by, just doing some general insulting of me or whatever. I don't care about that kind of stuff. They told me how ugly my tanks are and how they're always dirty and full of algae and the plants look terrible and how they'd be embarrassed to, post videos of tanks that look like that, and how can I even put that out there for public view, and blah, blah, blah. I get a lot of stuff like that. I don't care about that. But what struck me was they said that as a YouTuber, you're supposed to be a role model. How can you put such terrible looking tanks out there as a role model to others? So my first thought, and the way I responded back to them, in fact, was that who says I'm supposed to be a role model? I never signed up to be a role model. I just post videos of my aquariums. If you think that makes me a role model in some way, once again, I think you're the one with the unrealistic expectations about what you think you're going to get out of a YouTube video. But the more I got to thinking about it today, the more I got to realize that in my own way, I don't know if I'm necessarily comfortable with the term role model, but I definitely do set an example. And the example I set is just that. It's the example I set. You can watch what I do, and then you can see the results, and you can say, okay, that guy's got a lot of algae in his tanks. I personally don't like algae, so I'm not going to do what he does. To say that my tanks look terrible, that's just your opinion. I don't care whether you think my tanks are ugly or not. But if you don't want your tanks to look like that, then don't do the things I do. Because one thing I don't do on my channel is lie to you about how I maintain my tanks or keep my tanks or whatever. I don't go around and, spend 2 hours polishing all the rocks in my aquarium to make it look like it can go on the cover of, Home and Aquarium magazine, and then try to shoot a video. Oh yeah, I just picked up my camera, I'm just casually shooting some video. My tanks always look like this. I didn't do anything special, just spur of the moment video here. You don't get that from me. You get spur of the moment video, you're gonna see what my tank looks like, and it looks like a regular old everyday fish tank. It doesn't look like it's gonna be on the cover of Home and Fish Tank magazine. And so in that regard, you could say I'm a role model, or I'm an example setter of real, everyday, real world fish keeper. I'm on a budget. I'm limited on my education when it comes to this kind of stuff. I often have to do plenty of research before I do stuff. I make mistakes all the time. I'm learning as I go. I learn as much from my viewers as my viewers learn from me, but I'm sure. I do my best to put out information that's accurate. When I learn stuff, I try to share that with other people. That's, we humans are a communicating species, and sharing information is like what we're best at. And so I try to do that. But I'm not trying to pretend that I have these immaculate tanks that never have a speck of algae in them. Frankly, I think it's weird to expect your fish tank not to have algae in it. I think fish tanks that don't have any algae in them look unnatural and odd to me, but that's just me. If you like your fish tank looking algae-free and spotless, like you just went over the whole entire thing with a toothbrush all the time, have at it, But if you're going to put your expectations of what you think my fish tank should look like on me, then you're probably going to be sorely disappointed, because I really don't care what your expectations of my fish tanks are. My fish tanks look like the way I want them to look, and they don't always look the way I want them to look. I struggle with algae, or I struggle with cyanobacteria sometimes, but I've got a life, I've got other things to do. I can't spend all my time polishing rocks in my fish tanks. I don't have unlimited budget and resources, and frankly, it's not that big a deal to me if my tanks get a little behind schedule and they're looking a little shabby. I'll get to them when I can get to them. I just don't have time today, or I'm not in the mood. And so once again, if you want authenticity and if you want real world fish keeping, then I am a role model in that regard, or I am an example setter. You can take the example of how I keep my fish tanks and say, okay, some of those other channels that I see out there, and to be perfectly honest, I really don't watch a lot of other fish keeping channels, hardly at all. I did when I first got started so that I could learn, but once I learned, I don't really follow other people's channels or watch a whole lot of other fish keeping videos. But when I do, and from time to time I come across them or whatever, I always think back to when I was a new fish keeper and everything. I didn't look at those immaculate, spotless tanks that were all, crazy scaped and, expensive lighting. I never looked at that as something I aspired to. I, learned what I could learn about whatever they were telling me, but I never intended on having fish tanks that looked like that. I knew I couldn't afford them. I didn't have the time to maintain them that way. I didn't have the skill set. I wasn't going to go out and buy special gardening, little tiny underwater snips to maintain all the little fiddly stuff you got to do with all this, intricate aquascaping, and that's just not me. It's not my personality. It's not, anything I've got an interest in doing. But that to me seems to be more intimidating than it does encouraging. I would tend to think if you're new in the hobby and you're getting started and you see tanks like that, you get the impression that that's what you have to do to keep these fish or to keep your aquarium looking good. You get the idea that if you have some algae in your tank, you're a failure as a fish keeper. Or if you have some fish that die, you're a failure as a fish keeper. It's your fault. You're not doing something right. And that's just not true. And there was a dead fox on the side of the road. I thought it was a dead skunk. I was getting ready to prepare myself for what I was getting ready to start smelling. But foxes don't produce that kind of smell when they get hit. Anyway, those kind of channels and those kind of videos to me always come across as either pretentious or intimidating or something like that. And I try not to ever come across as any of that kind of stuff. I never really, belittle anybody else's tanks. I always try to encourage other people, and whatever is the best that you can do is the best you can do, and whatever your tastes are. If you like the colored gravel, put the colored gravel in there. I'm not going to give you a hard time over that. You're just not going to get a pretentious look at me, I'm some expert fish keeper, my tanks always look amazing, and that's just not me. It's not my personality. It's not my intention. It's not what my channel has ever been about. What you're going to get with me is regular Joe, everyday fish keeping. This is what my tanks look like. If you think they're ugly, stop watching my channel. Go watch somebody else's tanks that has pretty tanks. I don't know what else to tell you. If you don't like the way my tanks look, stop looking at them, because I'm not going to do anything differently because you say my tanks have too much algae in them or that they're ugly or whatever. If you find them that unattractive, then stop watching them. If you think I'm putting terrible, bad information out there, stop listening to me. Stop paying attention to my videos if you think I'm putting bad information out there. I get that a lot too. I get a lot of people tell me I'm putting bad information out there. And I take that seriously. If I am putting bad information out there, I want to know that. And correct me. Tell me what I'm putting out there bad. Can you give me an example? What did I say that was wrong? And I never have anybody, respond back to me. I do have people engage with me, and I find out that I'm wrong occasionally or whatever. But the people that put out those like, oh, you're so wrong about everything you just said, those kind of comments I can practically dismiss, because I know when I challenge them to give me an example of something I said that was wrong, I'm never going to hear back from them. I never do. the kind of people that do challenge me and say, are you sure that this is, or I've always heard that this is that or that is this, and I welcome those kind of questions. I'll even welcome your, the kind of comments that just say you're wrong. Just tell me why I'm wrong. I'm more than happy to accept when I'm wrong, but just tell me, give me an example. Don't just say, oh, you're wrong about everything you just said. What, everything? Every single thing I just said was wrong? Come on, give me an example of something I said that's wrong and we can talk about it or whatever. I got no problem with that kind of stuff. But the dumb comments about, I'm a big dummy head and my tanks are terrible, ugly, and so on and so forth, those are the comments that fascinate me. I wonder why people even post them and what the goal is. Do they think it's going to change something or accomplish something? Does it make them feel better just getting it out there and just, saying my tanks look ugly or something? I don't know. I appreciate it. Any comment is a comment. All activity is good activity. So anyway, I'm coming down the bend. I gotta round a couple of more corners here and then I'll be heading home. So I feel like I've had all I had to say. I just wanted to make it a point there that I am a role model in my own right. I'm a role model on either what not to do, depending on your point of view. If you want to learn how to not have algae in your tanks, go watch somebody else's video. If you want to learn, how to treat for algae, then maybe my videos might be a little more your speed. But what you're going to get with me is just everyday, regular fish keeping without a bunch of pretentious nonsense and a bunch of, artificially immaculate tanks that never get dirty and so on and so forth. That's just nonsense, and you're not going to get that here. So thanks for watching. Thanks for listening to me ramble. As always, I'd like to get your opinion about these types of videos, whether you like hearing me, drive around chatting about stuff or whatever. It's always food for thought for me. So thanks again for watching. See you real soon in the next one.